Good morning, Leadership Track. We are now getting ready for our speech by Sailu Timbo. It is titled The Melding Pot of the Workplace, How Diversity Strengthens the Team. Sailu's career began in 1998 in Waterloo, and he continued to work for Hy-Vee while attending the University of Iowa. As you can tell by his backdrop, he is an Iowa fan. After graduation, Sailu decided to take the store director career path. Along the journey, he worked at 11 different stores and was the store director at 4 of them. In late 2017, Sailu accepted a position of Director Diversity, where his main focuses were recruiting, training, and education to strengthen our inclusive culture. He is now a vice president focusing on community and diversity. He has a degree in African American World Studies from the University of Iowa, along with his entrepreneurial certificate. Sailu and his wife, Caitlin, reside in Waukee with their 2 daughters, Lila 6 and Lena 4. And believe me, they are adorable. So please help me welcome Sailu Timbo.
Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, good. And can everyone see my screen, my PowerPoint screen? All right, this is the first time I've done this, so I'm trying to figure this out here. So, and Cindy, thanks for the nice introduction. I've known Cindy for a long time, the better half of my career. And I can tell you one of the things that she's always been very generous in helping me out. When it came to benefits in the stores, whenever I needed to add one of my children onto our benefit plan or to have a silly question, because we have a lot of silly questions as most of that stuff's over my head, and she's always willing to help. And we still have the bibs that you sent us every time we had a baby. So we really appreciate that. And so thanks for the nice introduction. And yes, usually on Saturdays, I am in this location here at Kinnick Stadium. It has to be virtual today, and that's okay. If this is propaganda for Iowa, yes, you're absolutely right. I am cheering for Iowa today, and I think there's nothing else that matters besides talking to you guys today. So this is fun, and it's a nice stir up for the rest of my afternoon getting to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about diversity, equity, and inclusion, all right? And I'm very honored to be here to visit with you. I'm in this space, but I can still consider myself a novice. I just had a conversation with a guy who I consider a mentor, and he's a diversity inclusion professional. And literally, I'm taking notes at a rapid speed. But the one thing I can talk to you guys from is my heart and my perspective. And so everything that I'm talking about today is going to be about that. It's also going to be about maybe a few tips and tricks that can help you and your organization as you're leading or as you're working with folks or as working out in the public, or just having a simple basic understanding of what really diversity and inclusion means. So with that, I'm going to get started here. But my intention today is not to offend. It is to inspire. I want to be serious, but not too serious. We got to have a little fun and joke a little bit. To spark continuing dialogue. Again, I don't have all the answers, but collectively, as in our society and our communities, together we're stronger, and that's the real whole theme of the word inclusion. I'm going to really focus on a little bit. And then also, I just challenge everyone here to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Really, if there's anything that you take away from today, is you get comfortable being uncomfortable. That will open your mind to learning and understanding about individuals, about certain situations, and having a good understanding of everyone's unique perspective that they have. I can tell you right now, I am currently uncomfortable, and that's okay. And I'm excited about it, because even though I'm here to talk to you guys, I guarantee you long term, I'm going to get just as much out of you guys in the work that you guys do, or I'll hear and we'll have some continual dialogue, or I'll make some new friends. So for that, I'm excited. But that wouldn't happen if I was in a comfortable state. And so expanding my horizons here, and I get to do it with you guys today. So quickly, just some quick things that I hope you get out today. Get a good definition for diversity and inclusion. I think that you know, it's always left up to interpretation. So we're going to break it down to really simple science. Understanding the business imperative of focusing on D&I, especially in the workplace right now as we sit. And then also be able to lead with tools, skills, and a mindset to lead across differences. And I leave differences very broadly. Again, it's diversity, but it's the differences that come up in a certain situation. And sometimes they can make us emotional. They can get you to have that fire in your belly or the excitement. But there's ways to do that. There's ways to really to accept everyone who's around you and be able to make sure that they understand that they're important and their opinions matter, even if you do agree or you don't agree. So diversity, equity, inclusion, really simple. Diversity, recognize differences. You know, if you really think about, it refers to all aspects of human differences that are infinite. There's so many. You think about race, ethnicity, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, sexual identity, socioeconomic status, language, culture, disability, military. I can go on and on. Political perspectives. Timely to probably say that one right now, as that's probably the most polarizing thing in our TV. And I tell you what, I cannot wait to quit getting text about candidates, because that's all that's on my phone is text about candidates and this and that. I just can't wait for this to be over. So, and then, you know, I think about just the word different. What does that really mean to me? So different to me means that we are all diverse. We use the term diversity as some describe it, some will throw it around as a diverse candidate or a diverse population group, or this is the diverse aisle where we sell different items. Well, if you really think about it, everything in your building, in your store that you sell for widgets is going to be diverse. Every person you come across is going to be diverse. Even within that community, that general community, everyone's going to be diverse. And so it's not always going to be as simple as what we always assume. Equity is important. I think equity is real. It's all about opportunity when it comes to equity. So you have equity, but you also have equality, right? Similar but different. And so I think equity refers to fair and just practices of policies that ensure someone can thrive. They're put in a position to thrive. An employee can bring their best self to work. You have to find ways to make sure that you're getting the most out of that employee and they're getting the most out of the situation. It's going to be different in equality. Equality is going to imply treats everyone, no matter if their experience is the exact same. And that just can't be. You know, if you really look at it, you just look at this one slide here. Equality, everyone has a box to watch the game. It doesn't work for everybody. The two people on the right, it doesn't work for them. They have to struggle to watch, or one person can't watch at all because of their physical disability. And so if you add equity, you give everyone an opportunity to succeed. And I think this slide shows it best, really, as we're looking at how do we lead across differences is this. You put everyone in a position to succeed and get them out of the boxes that they probably are always in. And then I think what brings it home, the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, because not one of the three can work together without each other, is focusing on inclusion, respecting and utilizing the differences. And the utilizing is a real important part. Because if you think about the workplace where we all feel respected, have a sense of belonging, we're able to participate and achieve to the potential, then it's we can both be diverse and non-inclusive in a workplace. And so if you want to get rid of the non-inclusiveness and not just be diverse, at the same time you can sustain practices that create inclusive environments that are necessary for that success. Everyone will be able to have a voice opinion or be able to at least be thought up or brought up into the conversation for every major decision that's being made. I'll show you some slides later where we talk about the generational and the cultural, the demographic trends that are happening in America. So more and more cultural differences are going to be identified as we continue to move through this decade and decades to come. So, but remember, this work is subjective. It's also very unique. It starts with a story. So I'm going to tell you my story here. I am a first-generation African. Both of my parents are from the country of Sierra Leone, which is in West Africa. It was actually, and my mom actually owns a hotel right across the street from a tunnel that goes to the beach. And in that tunnel, and just a little bit of history, was the same tunnel where a lot of slaves who were captured were also sent to ships to come to America. So a lot of really unique history in the country of Sierra Leone. I take a lot of pride. I've never been there. I plan on going, but it's just really a lot of history I need to find out. And I still have a lot of family back there that I have never met. And so I took a 23andMe test, and I found out that I'm also 64% Ghanaian, right? So not even from Sierra Leone. 23% of me is only from Sierra Leone. 11% of me, and probably you couldn't tell, is Western Asian or Northern African. Also, I have 1% in me that's going to be Southern European, probably a mixture between Spanish and Italian. Don't ask me how, I don't know. But I can just tell you that I've asked a question back to my parents. They're like, yeah, well, if you think about some of the migration that happened, this probably did happen. There's some cultures that were mixing back in the days. One of 5 siblings. I am the second to youngest. I'm also the best looking out of my family. I don't tell my sisters that because they're all really cute too, and I love them all to death. But I have to joke with them and tell them that I am the best looking, and it's just our competitive nature. I've been to every state in the continental United States. So all 48 I've been to. I went to Louisiana actually this week last year. I was just getting back from Louisiana, I think today, or leaving to go there today. And so that was going to New Orleans. And I think part of that passion for traveling and understanding different cultures, way of life, started at a young age when my dad used to put us in the car when John Deere had their shutdown, and we would go from state to state and just spend time and get to know. And really you get an appreciation for different ways of life. Married to my wife, Caitlin, as Cindy mentioned earlier, we have 2 amazing girls. High school, graduated from Cedar Falls High School in 1999. Like I told you, I was the best looking. Maybe I should have said I was the best looking because I think I was better looking then than I am now. Again, I don't really call it arrogance. I'm just joking. But started working at Hy-Vee back in 1998. And the cool thing is when I started working in produce was I had a love for the people and the food. Right? It was the first job, and you learn some amazing skills. I say the 3 most important words of English language are hi, please, and thank you. I probably did not know until I was 17 years old, 16 and 17 years old, started working at Hy-Vee. And it's something that I carry with me today. And I talk to, especially when I'm talking to youth or, you're talking to employees, you talk about the 3 things that can create a warm and fuzzy in someone, hi, please, and thank you, along with addressing them by their first name. So this is where it all started for me. Went to the University of Iowa. This is a segment of a group of friends. A lot of us are best friends. We still have a chat group to this day. And, we get to talk and interact. And half of us in this are first generation from Middle Eastern countries, from my friends from Pakistan, Italians, and all that. So it's just beautiful to have this kind of group of friends with unique backgrounds and perspectives. Again, it's what shapes us, is our unique perspectives. A photo of my church. We won't talk about it very much more, but this is my happy place. And this is a place that I like to go. Love the bike ride. I've done many century rides on JDRF, century rides, RAGBRAI. Love to be on the bike. The only thing I can do without getting hurt. My favorite holiday is St. Patty's Day. Thanksgiving is a close second because you get to eat. Because I get to dress in a kilt with my dad. We joke that we're Black Irish for the day. And we get to dance and drink a few sodas and eat some Reuben sandwiches. It's a magical day. And that's just something that's about me that I love to tell people because it's just an amazing day for me in March 17th. So I'm also an ordained minister. I got asked to marry some good friends of mine. Actually, the young lady in the picture, I grew up with her. She's my sister's age, and we went to the same babysitter as kids. And they live here in Des Moines, and families are now good friends, and they asked me to perform the duties, and I was very honored. So I still like to do weddings, even though I'm not very religious. A lot of music, right? So think about my music choices there. Everything from Tupac to Van Halen, God rest Eddie Van Halen's soul. Very open-minded about understanding music. I think music is a snapshot of the world. You see more and more cultural assimilations in music. I think you see a lot more genres being crossed and mixed like crazy, specifically here in America, but all over the world. And it's just a snapshot of some of the things that are happening. Everything I do is for these two young ladies, right? This is my driving force. This is what makes me want to be better. This is why it's important for me to bring my full self to work every single day. I have to provide for these two young ladies. I have to set the example for them. I have to be there for them to help them up, knowing that the world, the uncertainty of what the world will look like when they have their own kids will be different. So it's my job to help them. I want to be able to bring my ideas to work. My ideas, my opinions, my backgrounds, personality, uniqueness. Unfortunately, though, there are barriers to this at times. And these are the barriers to inclusion: bias, assumptions, and cultural incompetence. This is why my story is so important, and this is why yours is too. You know, you think about implicit bias, sometimes called unconscious bias, the unconscious attitudes, feelings, stereotypes, and the unintentional actions that merely because actions towards members of a group, merely because the membership of that group. So we all have this, right? I think we can, if I hit the raise your hand button, we all would raise our hands, or you should. But that's okay, because again, that's what makes us. It's how the brain works. We take in 11 million bits of information every single moment. Only remember 40 of them every single moment. So your brain has to find a way to organize, and it works as like a filing cabinet. So you can actually be able to recall a little bit easier, right? And so unconsciously, this is how it works, and that's okay. The challenge is, and we'll get into that, is that the works in the workplace, or as you're working out socially or out in the community, is we tend to put people in buckets. We tend to look at people like this. Who here remembers the movie Terminator 2, where he looked at the young man after he needed clothes and said, "I need your shirt, your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle, because I'm taking them. And because you fit your size, this works for me." And so we tend to scan a situation, or tend to scan people to have a to put them in a box, or to categorize, again, like our brains naturally work. There is a test that Harvard put together called the Implicit Bias Test. You can go just do a Google search and find that test. And with that test, you can actually, there's a formula there, a mathematical formula to measure what your bias is. Challenge you to look at it. I've done it once. I need to do it again here just to see. But again, it identifies the fact we all have biases. And that's good, because if you're in Africa and you saw this lion here, your bias, your first thought would be to run, not to pet the lion, or, you know, so you need that bias in you to make positive decisions. Now, I will also tell you that some of our biases also create these assumptions, right? Where assumptions, what is visible, what is obstacle, what is perceived is going to be style, race, behaviors, language, action, gender, just by looking at a person or at a situation. But what isn't seen in this iceberg under the waterline is physical abilities, potentially age, values, thoughts, perspectives, sexual orientation, culture, religion, life experiences, right? And so by getting a better understanding, we will, in theory, mitigate our implicit bias. You'll never get rid of it. I don't believe people say that they get rid of their biases, that they see no color, they see no differences with genders. No, you should, and that's healthy too. But if you're using it to drive decisions that you feel make perfect sense, where this is the way it always has been, then that's where there's a challenge, especially in the workplace, as we try to get to work together. It turns us into us versus them. All the people like us are we, and everyone else is they, right? So you have we's and they's. So we's and they's have to work together, because that's what we do. We work together. And once we get to know each other, I guarantee you that there will be some conflict if you really don't identify, or you don't create an inclusive environment where people can trust each other and have conversations, not necessarily have to be best friends. They just need to talk to get to know each other. So think about cultural competency, right? This is going to become more and more, again, as our world continues to become more and more culturally diverse, more and more, you're seeing the majority group, and I have some slides later that'll show you, majority group is going to become the minority group, or become equal by 2043. So having the ability to connect, communicate, collaborate, and resolve conflict across differences equals cultural competency, or you could even say cultural balance, right? Because you have the assumptions, the stereotypes, prejudice, biases, bigotry, scapegoating, discrimination, racism, sexism, classism, ageism, ableism, weightism, heterosexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, religiousphobia, and also xenophobia, right? And so we want to find ways to respect others' opinions. You know, everyone has their opinion. Just turn on Facebook every day or some kind of social media, you're going to see it every single day. The cultural and generational differences and historical injustice without becoming defensive, right? And this is, I think we all have to practice this here. This is where we all want to be right, but we're not always going to be right. And so, excuse me here. Someone was trying to call in on my phone. We want to make sure that we take a pause and just think and use some emotional intelligence before we react and have a snowball effect. I mean, think about if you have an employee come work for you and you're the boss and you have an employee come work for you and their culture is they can't touch or eat pork. How do you get through that? How do you talk through that versus saying, well, you just can't do the job? Well, going back to the equity rules that we talked about earlier, you need to find a way to make it work for everybody, or someone with a disability. And how do you help them be successful in their job? What are some of the things you could do that could be mutually agreed upon so they can be successful, right? And so it's thinking about that, but also have an understanding like going back to just African Americans, 30 million African Americans, United States, that optically look like a continent that has 800 million Black people. In that continent, there's 50 different countries. They speak 2,000 different languages. So even in optically, as you look at folks looking together, looking the same, or being in the same group, there's going to be multitude of differences that come across. I gave you my story earlier. First generation African from Sierra Leone, right? I didn't have a lot of the same experiences that a lot of African Americans in America did. Same goes from other cultures. Same goes for other categories that you can consider in the diversity space. Even look at religion and how much differences are the different types of Christianity and all that kind of stuff too. So, so trying to work on unconscious bias. Remember that we all have it, and really the best way to work on it is creating, it's increasing our competence, right? Increasing competence, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, it really starts with dialogue. Because if you don't increase competence and you don't spend the time to get to know each other, this is what happens. It becomes more of a business imperative. The Benjamins, the money. In my business, it's all about the money, right? I mean, we're trying to take care of customers, but we want to be able to have a business that works for everybody. I was talking to a store director the other day, and I was going over their demographic numbers, showing them what their race and ethnicity makeup was in a 2-mile radius of their stores. And I basically said, here's the deal. Look at these numbers here. So when you go to merchandise your store for Thanksgiving, chances are it's not just always going to be turkeys, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, pumpkin pie, and all these other things that we normally traditionally see on a Thanksgiving table. Use this data to talk to your customers and see, hey, how do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Because we want to grow our business with you. We want you to shop with us. That is a selfish, but a good understanding of your customers. And the best way to do it is make sure that your employees represent your community and they trust, and you can have the trust where they can give you their honest feedback and information. So know some of these trends that are happening right here. You're seeing an increased number of women, people of color in the workforce. You're going to see more and more women and people of color in executive leadership roles, but immigrants are coming to the workforce, aging people in the workforce. So a lot of that has to do with folks who want to stay busy, want a second job as the baby boomers are beginning to retire. There's things that need to be, people want to have things to do. But also there's a level of experience and those who have spent their whole careers working that is still very strong qualities and skills that we can tap that can help move the needle, especially as the workforce has been, up until recently with COVID, has been very tight, really, really very tight. So we'll continue to see that as unemployment drops again. Number of employees who rely on the workplace for a social life. I was really interested in seeing that, but I think what you're seeing is a lot of folks, and this is past before COVID, are staying at home and they're not doing much and they're socializing either by social media. So their person-to-person contact is happening at the workplace. Tolerance for different identity groups. I think you're seeing more and more of that. Again, that's just pointing to our cultural changes we're seeing here in the world. Retraining and upskilling needs for employees. We're also moving at a light speed regarding information technology and innovation. And think about the things you can do with your phone right now that you didn't have to do before. I set foot in the bank the other day because I opened up a new bank account at a different bank. That was the first time I'd probably set foot in a bank in probably 3 years. All the unique things that we're doing. So you have to upskill that go along with that. Eventually here in the grocery industry, you're going to be able to go through a checkout lane and not have to swipe for payment. You may not even have to take groceries out of your cart. So how do we train for that? How do we train for the online shopping that's happening and some of that boom, and as people are changing some of their habits? Changing family needs for employees. As you see more and more cultural growing cultures coming to let's say America, you're seeing more multi-generational families in the same household because that's deep rooted in particularly the Asian and Hispanic cultures. So as your business, as you're trying to attract talent, as you're trying to attract customers, you have to be mindful of that and what that really means. People with disabilities, again, back to the equity, focusing on finding ways to put people in positions where they can succeed. And there's nothing more satisfying than that. As you see projected population growth rates over the last 10 years, you see where all the growth is, right? And this is just to validate some of the things we were talking about earlier. Projected U.S. population growth between 2010 and 2020, the majority group grew by only 0.6%. And the biggest growth is 2 or more races. So again, that's also speaking to the fact that you're seeing more and more of a melting pot happen in society. The workplace will reflect that, but how effective will they be with the inclusive mindset will be what helps determine some success. Nationally, you're seeing 50% of the population will be non-white by 2043, like I mentioned earlier. Experts think that we're outpacing this projection. Some of that pivots on immigration, and that some of that is going to pivot on policy regarding immigration. 18 and under America nationally is already majority minority right now, as this slide shows you right here. Nationally, 23 of the largest 100 cities are already majority minority. The state of Iowa, minority population is 15%, but 20 years ago, it was a little over 7%. So all the growth in the state of Iowa is all been minority population. Youth in Des Moines proper is already majority minority. So we're seeing that change happen right now. Population in Iowa, population growth of 6,000 over the last 10 years includes a loss of 45,000 Caucasian or white people and a gain of 51,000 of people of color. So again, if it's business, if it's just how you go about your life or your communities, what you identify as your community, it's probably good to have a good understanding of some of these cultural shifts that are happening. And it all ties back again to the business case. So if you look at U.S. buying power by race and ethnicity, you're seeing a significant change. In 2000, buying power by people of color was 13.6%. But as you go to 2023, you're looking at 20% is what's projected. So it's very important to have a good understanding of who is spending money in your organization. At Hy-Vee, we study that. This is very important. So, Cindy, does that mean how many minutes do I have left? 10 minutes. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. So part of your business imperative is really focused on improving organizational performance. Companies that on the Fortune 500's 50 best for minorities to work at, and that is really based on inclusion. They outperform the S&P 500 companies over 3 to 5 year periods. And it's also, Catalyst has also come out and said that companies with more gender diverse boards will outperform companies without gender diverse boards by 53%. And it really means a lot. If you think about women making 83% of the consumer decision makings in a household, that's going to speak volumes to the fact that if you look at your board, you look at what you're trying to sell, you want to make sure that you are supporting those who are buying from you. And then think about, turnover, improved retention. The cost savings due to lower turnover, absenteeism would also improve productivity. Also think about someone who quits your company, right? So you have turnover and you have, you're not retaining them. But think about people who quit and stay in your organization. What does that do? How do you measure the quantity of, measure what that effect that they have on you? You look at the fact that they're going to bring other people down. They're going to have a negative attitude potentially. They're not going to be productive. They're going to set a bad example. So that's something that will continue to be a challenge. And so if you work on an inclusive environment, you work on cultural competency, you'll be able to recruit better because you'll have a better feel, and your employees are your best recruiters who are going out, be able to retain employees better, improve client relations, productivity, and corporate culture, but also innovation. Again, going back to innovation, what something means to one person may be different than the other. And so if you focus on the innovation piece, everyone's going to bring a unique perspective to the table and be able to make sure that whatever that innovative idea is going to meet the masses, whatever the masses look like to you. And then I also want to promote that enhanced reputation and brand image. This is very important. We see right now a lot of the jump the gun. Again, something can happen here in Des Moines, Iowa, and be in California in 30 seconds, right? Just because of the speed of information. And so you want to really protect your brand image, and you have to communicate that to your employees and people in your organization so they know and they understand that, so they can help protect it. They're going to be the gatekeepers of it. So how do we change the narrative, right? It's really simple, okay? I hope we don't make it harder than what it is when we want to change the narrative, because this is what our world looks like today. These are some of the issues, the images that we get when we turn on the news every single day. Starts with us. Starts with us looking ourselves in the mirror every single morning. It starts with us challenging what we think is right. It starts with us thinking about our mindset. We can't do anything without a mindset. Challenge the status quo. If you think the way you've always thought, you always feel the way you've always felt, you always do what you've always done. If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always have gotten. If you always get what you've always gotten, you always think what you've always thought, right? So a little bit of a messing with your mind then, but that's really reality, is challenge and having the willingness to change and the mindset of changing, a mindset of understanding. I'll give an example of just my biases and how my mindset's set. So in running diversity recruiting, I had a store director bring a young man who was dressed nice to the T's, wearing dreadlocks, and came to our career day at the corporate office and introduced me to him. So I meet the young man, I look at him, wanted his suit, he was dressed to the nines. This guy was studly, And I said, so what do? Are you an assistant manager? Are you going through the management program? No, he looks at me and goes, no, I'm a cake designer. I decorate cakes. Because of my mindset at the time, because of the fact that I wasn't ready to take the time to think about how my biases or how I've already categorized this young man, I wouldn't have thought of him being a cake designer, right? And maybe you would or you wouldn't either. So just know that that was my challenge, right? And that was where I felt like I was going to make a mistake. I made a mistake, right? It's not about making mistakes. Everyone's going to make a mistake. It's not about perfection. It's about connection. It's about getting a sense of understanding that what is up is down and down is up. If you do make a mistake, ask for feedback, apologize, and then be inquisitive. Instead of always saying, well, that's not what I meant, and being defensive in any situation, right? Because we're going to have that in an inclusive environment. Think about if you said, well, what should I have said? How would you think that I should address the situation going forward? And have dialogue. And again, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. You got to be uncomfortable, get uncomfortable, find comfort in being uncomfortable. We don't need a withdrawal, but we need to move closer after we make a mistake. And so know this stat: 1/3 of American workers don't feel safe voicing their opinions about racial bias or any other major issue or major topic in America right now. How do you build trust? It starts with dialogue, it starts with a conversation, and it starts with understanding. If you do that, diversity, inclusion, and equity in your organization will come to the top. Everyone will feel welcome. Everyone will bring in their ideas to help your organization be successful, have employee engagement and buy-in. With that, I want to thank you for your time. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I do want to say go Hawks. And if you ever want to reach out to me, my email is stimbo@Hy-Vee.com. Cindy can send that out if she would like to too. With that, and unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Sailu. We so appreciate you sharing with us today. You did a fabulous job. You gave us a lot of insights to look at, and just the knowledge that, oh, we all do have some bias tendencies, even though we may not recognize them, and that we're supposed to. That's the way we're made.
Right.
So thank
Absolutely.
you so much for sharing with us. Does anybody have any questions for Sailu at all? We've got just a couple minutes here. Okay, well, with that, it is now our break time for lunch. Anybody can go to grab your lunch, make your lunch, run out, whatever your plan is for lunchtime today. And then we will reconvene at the general Toastmasters Zoom room. And we will be having our Hall of Fame ceremony that Teresa Mickelson will be conducting and recognizing all of our achievers that have made leaps and bounds in their processes in Toastmasters this year. So thank you, and we will see you at 12:15.